hello, and welcome to this episode of Sonic Talk. Back after our German odyssey. We were first in Superbooth, Berlin, then we were in Musikmesse. So I'm finally back. We got back on Sunday, and it was a heck of a trip. So if you've had a bit of withdrawal symptoms, I do apologise, but I also want to say hello and welcome to our YouTube Live listeners, and also to our Periscope listeners. I'm trying to so I've got a screen over here for Periscope. So this is something we're trying new. Just trying to increase the number of people that we can potentially reach at any time. But nice to see all you folks in the chat room. Thank you very much for joining us. A fulsome chat room, if you don't mind me saying so. So always nice to see you all. I want to also say that the show is sponsored by Isotope. A message from them later on where you can win a copy of Ozone 7. And in fact, we have a winner from, nearly 2 shows ago, in fact. But anyway, let's get on to joining our guests, because we have a triumvirate of guests. We'll start first with Robbie Broneman over there at his client studio where he's working on an album. Great to see you, Robbie. Has been a little while. I think your bandwidth is slightly challenged, but I'm sure we'll be able to struggle through. How are you, Robbie? Good?
Yeah, very good, thanks. I think we're running on 4 meg.
Whoa, I don't think I can manage that. Not with all of this stuff coming out.
4 meg, but check it out. 4 meg and 200 kbs upload, whatever.
Woo-hoo. Wow.
So it takes me about 2 hours to upload an MP3.
So that's why, hence your video. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you aboard. And of course, we have Mr. Gaz Williams there, who's in his bass studio up in the top floor. Gaz Williams, of course, music technologist as well, and producer as well. Actually, Robbie, I forgot to introduce you as a producer and a musician and all of those things. Anyway, Gaz, how are you?
Yeah, great. I mean, gosh, mad, busy time. So, well, like yourself, really. Been crazy on the go with loads of things. The Matuki album launch, that's gone really well. We did Matuki. That's the psychedelic Afrofunk. That's the official
a new genre
definition. Psychedelic Afrofunk. Yeah, I mean
that sounds great.
So that Matuki, Matuki, that's now out. But also. Pig Records label launched. It's a record label, jazz label that I've been involved with. So that's all cool. And just about to play a storming gig on Saturday with Charlotte Church playing the MIDI bass, which those of people who are at the Sonicstate live show were given the first viewing of. This is a brand new MIDI bass that there will be more of coming later, but I'm getting to play it with Charlotte Church at Stuart Lee's All Tomorrow's Parties on Saturday. So this is going to be a brilliant gig, and we're lasting on Saturday night. Yes, we're playing a big party
headline.
Set of some monster tunes. And I'm playing Erebus. I'm using Erebus with loads of the tunes on the bass lines, and the MIDI bass facilitates proper bass playing with analog synths. It is amazing. So there's loads of. I'm having a real amazing time with it at the moment.
Excellent. So lots of live playing. So
it's my worlds have come together. The synth and the bass worlds. The MIDI bass thing is quite a revolutionary idea. This is the industrial radio, I should mention.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Australian guy. Well, glad to have you aboard. It's a pleasure. And also we have Mr. Non-Eric from musotalk.de. There he is. By personal request, musotalk.de, of course, German language kind of music test technology chats, or kind of a similar vein to what we do here, but slightly more professional, if I might add. Although not today, I don't know.
Not well. Trying to rearrange myself from the 2 shows we had, right?
Yeah, that was pretty full on. I would like to say, actually, I bumped into Daniel Miller when we were at Superbooth in Berlin, which was the first of the 2 shows, and he said, you must get Non-Eric on more often. There you go. So by royal request, if you like, just for you, Daniel. There you are. So, Non-Eric, it's been it has been a crazy couple of weeks. I mean, we haven't had really time off. First, I think last Tuesday we went to Berlin, which is your home city, of course. I hadn't been there for a long time. We went to the Superbooth, which is held in the Funkhaus in down the river some way, and it was quite an experience. Very much of a sort of synthesizer. If you don't know anything about it, it's something that's been put together by Herr Schneider. Oops, that's not the one I want. It's that one, Herr Schneider. who basically is the kind of synthesizer dealer, legendary synthesizer dealer in Berlin, puts on the Superbooth. Has been something that started out as basically a kind of collection of manufacturers at trade shows. So he started out doing it at Musikmesse, where he'd bring a lot of the people that he was selling gear from, bring them all in and get them to have exhibits in one sort of super booth, hence the title. But also he took it over to NAMM, and it's been sort of touring as well. So it seemed like a fairly, likely event that he would put his own on. But this thing was way more than any of us ever expected, I think, because it was huge. And I know you're not easily impressed, Mr. Non-Eric. So what did you make of it?
I was surprised of the scale of the whole operation. I suspected at the beginning it could be a little bit more than a huge booth, but it was the whole Funkhaus was invaded by the synthesizer community. And what I really liked about it is there was this kind of there was a great feeling in the air. Everybody was, having fun and exchanging ideas and talking. But I think it's due to that the synthesizer freaks and fans. They're our community, which are we're all into the same gear and we're all into the very similar music. And so it was a very homogeneous, or I don't know what the English word is.
Holistic, yes.
Yeah, a very, very nice community. And like-minded spirits joined together in one location. I think it was great. And it was depressing not to have it at Messe, actually, because Messe, on the other hand, was really, really sort of grim and very, very loud this year. And I think a lot of the exhibitors I was expecting there didn't show up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a very, very contrasting event. And obviously, we've got quite a lot of synthesizer stuff. We also got some great other bits and pieces. And actually, I've got a bit of a tour here. Just a quick look at what the building has to offer. I think we did I'll play a little bit of it. This is us going.
So we'll go. You notice we got the red carpet, which is a little bit grubby now, but makes you feel special, especially when you go up a staircase like this. This is sort of classic bit of marble. Watch your step there, Ed. Don't want you falling over.
So this place was 1950s architecture.
Got the Touche guys here, and there's Audio Workstat. Then there's the Moon Modular, and this is the staff only. This is our little interrogation room up here where we've got a little office. So this is where things get really special. Oh look, there's Hans from musotalk.de.
That's meta. There you are.
Sonicstate podcast. So we'll start over here because this is one of the two main halls. These spaces have been created by acoustic experts of the time, and they built these specifically to sound good. This is probably going to be loud in here. I don't know what's going on. So this is Studio One.
Can't see a thing. Wait for it though, it's worth it.
If you look up to the ceiling, you might be able to make out. No, it's pitch black. Okay, let's come out. So that didn't go too well because it's just so dark in there. But there's a performance going on, and this is the main hall. This is been designed specifically for a 2.6 reverb tail, which apparently is what you want for this kind of thing, and it's so perfectly designed.
This is
it's actually they have to clear
the money shot
out at 4 o'clock so that the humidity wouldn't affect the tail for the recording of the evening's concert. Let's have a look at this. I mean, this is just crazy. I mean, look up at the ceiling, all of this damping, all this sort of vaulted, all of these surfaces are built for acoustics. And this is the presentation stage where people have been talking about their specific items. And it looks like somebody's tuning a dulcimer over here. Let's have a look.
Right, I won't play the whole thing, but needless to say, we did get quite a lot of video stuff from there. I mean, I think the thing about this is, the thing about the Superbooth is, it is a very new event. I don't know if either of you guys, Robbie or Gaz, managed to pick up any, because we posted 30-odd videos from there, but again, as you can imagine, it was quite modular-centric, though. We did actually try and pick up a few interviews and stuff. Did you, have you been to the Funkhaus? Because it's the sort of place that I guess if you go to Berlin, one might try and make a pilgrimage.
No, you can't.
You can't?
Nick, because it's usually, there's nothing going on there. It's deserted place. It's just changed ownership, and Berlin is desperate to get something going in that location because.
Wow.
Remember, Nick, the first day it was really, really cold?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, probably because they haven't heated for quite some time. I know there's going to be the Music Tech Festival going to happen in May, so there is events happening there. But as I said, they just changed ownership, and it's be exciting what's going to happen. There's right now, all that is happening there is a couple of rehearsal rooms are there. Bands are practicing there, little studios, but we don't know yet what's going to happen at the old East German Funkhaus, which is a great location, great studios, but nobody knows how to use them, has an idea how to use them because, let's frankly, I mean, 2.6 seconds reverb is great, but,
Yeah, for that room, there are a lot of other rooms in the space, though. I mean, that's the thing. I know. So you... Did you get a chance to see any of the stuff, or you been heads down in the album world, Robert?
I have been very busy, but I did get a chance to look at some of the videos, and had a few friends who were there who said, "Oh, well, you should have been here." So next year, I definitely would make the effort to go, even just as a punt, just to see what's going on. Really, it looks a lot of fun.
Perform.
Yeah, well, there is space for. I mean, there was quite a lot of. The thing about it is there was quite a lot of performance there. I mean, and a lot of it was quite modular in its nature, which, as you would understand. But I think there's probably, and some of it was really experimental. I mean, I don't know how much kind of more mainstream melodic stuff there was there. I mean, I just didn't get a chance to see it because the way that what happened was the day started for us at 9 o'clock. We got on a boat which took us down to the Funkhaus on the river, which meant we were up at 7. So we got to the Funkhaus at 9:30. Show started at 10. It finished at 8, and then at 8 o'clock they flipped it round and started live performances in some of the other, because there's another huge hall there which was used for concerts, which we didn't get a chance to film in. And so these things went on. It wasn't so much on Thursday, but on Friday and Saturday night, they went on till 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. So you can imagine after a day covering the show, that's not so much something that one would necessarily have the time for or the energy, which is a shame. I don't know if you managed to make any of those hands. I'm guessing probably not, but I know.
No, I mean, that's one thing that we should note. I think it worked so well because it's a community of like-minded people who are into the same kind of noise-related synthesizer music, and the scope of music one would hear at the event was narrow. It was a certain kind of electronic music, and I think that was basically the reason why it went so well. That's why the vibe was there, because they were all on the same page. Everybody who was there was on the same page, more or less. But I wonder how this could be more mainstream than it would. There was one remark I heard from somebody who was exhibiting there, said, well, there wasn't very much of a general public there. There were mainly people from the industry, developers, people working for the small companies. So it was more like, what's a congress? No, what is it called?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yes, it was like a conference. More
like a conference than a fair, I would say. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say this time. I know, Gaz, as another innocent bystander, I know you were quite keen. You were wondering whether or not you might actually be able to make it over, and quite a lot of people were asking after you. I have to say, from my point of view,
I was going to come. But I realised that the gig that I was going to have to burn out was the album launch of this album I'd just been producing for 4 months. So I couldn't do it. I couldn't get out of it. I was really dead set on coming next year.
Let's go next year.
But I want to perform. I'm a performer, I am. So I get me a gig. Funkhouse people, I'll bring my MIDI bass and I'll play it through the massive modular rig and rock the joint. There we go.
Yeah, that would be pretty good fun, actually. That would be pretty good fun.
So what you're saying is you'd really like to see it be a bit more of a cross between what it is and Sonar.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Because at Sonar, they have a really large area, which is, like an exhibit hall or whatever, different companies turning up doing little, something's selling, something's just showing off little bits of technology at the Sonar Festival in Barcelona. Actually, Sonar happens in other places as well. Oh, it happens in... I just rolled my wheelchair over my toe. Ow.
Ouch. Easy.
I was trying to suppress the ow there for sort of professionalism.
Just let it out.
Let it all out. But that... so I think that's a brilliant point by Robbie, actually, that sort of... maybe a few more performances to bring more people in. But at the same time, it's wonderful, isn't it? Wonderful that that's happened. I think it's so exciting. And what a perfect use of the building, if there was some way of it being, instead of it just being yearly, if they could have them quarterly, maybe, if there was some way to make it work, it's such a developing world and growing world, the whole modular world, just sort of to have something that maybe was more than yearly. I don't know. That's probably too much effort.
Well, it might be a bit too much for Andreas.
But if the building... Yeah, but if the building's there not being used, I'm sure there's some way to make that work with that.
I think maintenance is a huge problem. I think it's really expensive to maintain the building.
I can imagine it is. I mean, it was. Yeah. There was a lot of work going on. You can see there had been quite a lot of work going on there because we had a bunch of sort of side rooms and what have you going on. We were in one of those, and they were sort of hastily cleared. Smelled very strongly of. High toxicity chemicals, which had probably been used to clear out the place. But it was a fantastic event, and I think you're right. I think maybe to broaden it out to wider electronic music would be a good thing, because I think the thing about the modular world is there is a very purist approach to that. A lot of people are very sort of snobby about, you can't really introduce a laptop or any other computer into that world. And I didn't see all the gigs, so I can't really say that was the case for everybody at all. But I know that there was, that Mark Verbose played. There was quite a lot of sort of banging techno stuff as well, as far as I understand. I mean, it wasn't just bleep blops and experimental stuff. It was actually quite and also there was a live stream which wasn't highly publicized, but the stage which we saw in that previous video, there were I don't know how many slots in a day, a lot of slots, and every 20 minutes or every half an hour there was a slot of somebody going and doing a talk, and that was all streamed live as well from the event via DBS School, who I think are somewhere close by. So, I did try and publicise it when I was there, but it was very hard to focus on stuff, and it was, again, one of those very intense events, but absolutely fantastic, and I think it's something that, we would say keep doing it. Did you see anything, Non-Eric, that was interesting to you outside of, just the actual artistic side of it? Because you, like us, were going around and sort of filming and talking to people. I mean, what was the highlight of the show from that point of view for you?
Meeting Dave Rossum, the sole inventor of the EMU SP1200. And I did a 30-minute interview, which will be live tomorrow on musitalk.de. And it will be in English, so even the Sonicstate viewers can enjoy it. And I went down to the, to the latency and down to the way the converters worked and the disk drive worked. And we really got down to the Z80 processor. Really down to the bottom and the core of the fucking drum machine.
Wow.
That was my highlight.
Did you you should have taken one along and had him sign it.
Yeah.
Or have you sold them all now?
I had 4 and I sold 3 of them.
Ah, okay.
So, but I've got one left, and that one looks like it's mint. It looks like just out of the shop. It's great.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, that was my highlight. But I must make a small correction here, Nick. There were also Native Instruments was there.
That's very true, yeah.
Urs Heckman was there. There was the Zedmores, the modular guys on the iPad were there. The Patchwork guys were there. Sugar Bites were there. Steinberg was there. Roland, so it was already sort of...
No, I would agree there. That you did get the... I mean, I think perhaps the Korgs and the Rolands did seem a little bit off. They were less... It was peculiar, actually, because they seemed kind of... Yamaha were there as well with Steinberg, in fact, so there were some bit... I'm guessing those guys probably helped to make the whole thing happen, because presumably they were charged something for attending the show, and they had some really nice rooms, because as well as those two big recording spaces, there were other studio rooms that had exhibitors. In fact, Moog had their own Moog Island, which they did, which was gorgeous. And it was a really curious thing, actually. I don't know if you went in the room, but because we had a chat with Steve Dunnington about the Mother 32 design, which will be another interview coming up sometime in the future. But when you walked into the Moog room, it was like going into a library and everybody started talking quietly. It was really curious. It was like a sort of an atmosphere that just seemed to surround it. It hadn't been made that way. And I was talking to Emmy, who's the main publicist there, the publicity person there, and she was saying, yeah, it's great, isn't it? I don't know why that's happened, but it has. And it was really, really kind of cool, all of that stuff. I mean,
maybe because people were on the floor.
Yeah.
On their Teppich, one would say in German, with
cushions.
headphones, cushions and headphones. So it was a kind of the chill out part, the relaxed part. Yeah, it's funny how that worked by itself. Really funny.
So again, to you two guys, I don't know if you saw much of the coverage. Was there anything there that you thought, oh, well, that looks jolly interesting? I mean, Dave Rossen had a very interesting pulse wave sampler, which looked pretty.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what just strikes me is, I mean, the madness of it is that when I look at what my modular is, and it's it's not small, it's 4 full 8 whatever it is 128 HP whatever it is full up. It's almost like it's out of date, well out of date, because it's like there's just such an amount of modular coming out that if you don't buy anything for like a few months, the tide has just totally sort of drowned you in all the stuff that's coming out. So, people who are really hardcore into it, they must just be, spending all their life and money on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something I know that's you have to watch out there, Robbie, because I know that you put an embargo on yourself to stop getting involved in any more modular stuff.
But I mean, I think it's exciting, but it's just amazing how exponentially it just sort of has gone in like the last 3 years, from kind of being a kind of curiosity and kind of a very left field kind of area of kind of music technology for most people to kind of like the mainstream almost.
Yes, I agree. That is interesting. Do you think we're at the point at which the bubble is likely to burst then?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
You think there'll be a modular backlash, whatever that might look like?
Well, maybe not necessarily, but there is if we look at it in terms of, I think it has to do that how you make the music has become more important than to get something done efficiently, So the process is dominant when you're into modulars. You like the process of making it, you like patching, getting the sound, playing around with it. Not necessarily you're that much interested in the end result, because if you're just focused on the end result, you could probably make music that sounds exactly like the one you're trying to do with the modular. You could do that on your computer a lot easier, a lot cheaper, a lot more efficiently. So it's not about the end product. It's about the way you make music. And there's a certain fascination, you twiddle it, but I'm afraid that because it's very hard to get a very good end result by just knob fiddling, but maybe you guys have different experience, but to get a finished track, something that you can release, at the end of the day, you need to add to your modular system. And then you start drifting into this other world as well. And if you want to really stay true to the modular vein, you're about function, but you're not that much into the end results. And I would just love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think... Sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought it was really curious that Softube announced that virtual modular that kind of recreates the modular modules of like some of the best, known modular people now. I mean, it's just kind of like a weird a weird circle that we go around and around with, isn't it? I mean, I could kind of see that that's an interesting area if like loads of really big manufacturers get on board and license, you know, to have their modules made in software. I guess that would be a great way of archiving patches and being able to bring them back in the studio or for live performance possibly. But I just thought it was a curious idea that that's kind of, you know, software to emulate the stuff that people were so desperate to get their hands on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. At the Superbooth, the Native Instruments blocks modular sort of physical software meeting, that's very well designed, isn't it? I think seeing more of that now, I'm quite impressed about that as being the way of branching across the two. Is the Softube one more of purely just a computer one rather than it?
Yes. Well, I've got a little bit of that here.
It's a modular synth based on Eurorack modular, featuring authorized emulations of Duffer and IntelliGel modules, as well as some own customized modules.
Let's have a look.
Module quad.
It was very noisy at Messe.
Converters.
Yes.
You can do.
Let's just hear a bit more of that patch.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that looks a little bit more like a kind of poly thing that's going on there, but yeah, I mean, the Native Instruments blocks is a really interesting concept because of the way that they've chosen to take the software and use an interface like Expert Sleepers, a DC coupled interface, to then communicate directly with hardware, and that is the stuff that's a bit more interesting. Because I remember when Expert Sleepers stuff, the Silent Wave, first came out, it sort of felt like it would be a great way of not having to bother with buying things like LFOs and envelopes and things that are just modulators. You could concentrate purely on the side of things, of oscillators and filters and things. And yeah, and the Native Instruments thing is very interesting. And I was trying to quiz them and get them to admit or let something out that perhaps they were thinking about taking some sort of route to hardware with Native Instruments and just creating, like, for instance, I mean, if you could imagine taking the Native Instruments blocks, creating a player for iOS, having a little thing you could plug into the lightning port that gave you CV outs, and then, because it seems acceptable to play with an iPad in a modular setup, but not so much with a laptop, so then you could have that as a part of a kind of overall system, and that would really start to rock. I mean, I don't know whether or not, you know, this is the other thing, the amount of coverage that modular stuff gets is probably disproportionate, that the amount of revenue it makes and the amount, you know, for somebody like Native Instruments. But that's the sort of thing that I thought would be a very interesting side of things. I mean, Robbie, you're a user. I mean, would that make sense for you to have something like that's interfacing, so that then it's much easier for you to recall stuff?
My biggest sort of thing with the whole modular thing is that I love fiddling around with my modular, and I love fiddling around my little phenol patching stuff and things, but I can quite often go down a rabbit hole and lose so much time and get fixated with like a great little thing that in the end, the grand scheme of things never actually makes it into anything I'm working on because it just doesn't fit. So I'm all for things that start making modulars much more efficient in their workflow to be used in the wider studio situation. So yeah, I mean, it is like two worlds at the moment with a few sort of awkward kind of steps into both. And it would be really nice to see something that kind of made it so that a modular can go into your workflow and be, you know, just as quick and efficient than pulling up a soft synth or whatever. But with the, you know, with all the benefits of having something tactile and physical to use. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think Non-Eric's point is very, very valid about the process of making the music and how that is the big thing of the modular. But also, I'm just wondering about, is it possible as well that the modular world is pulling like so many people in who weren't music makers, who are people who maybe are more interested in, you know, experiments, science, that sort of thing. And actually, it isn't eating into a traditional synthesizer sort of user base, but actually growing the work by bringing people, do you see what I mean? And maybe computer programmers or app programmers who've got into that way of thinking, having that physicality to that mental process is going to be very appealing, isn't it? So it could, so that, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
I have another thought, maybe. When we look at how millions and millions and billions of money has been spent in the last centuries in terms of marketing and making people feel more as an individual. I'm so individual. I'm so different. You are so different. Why don't you buy this? So this is sort of in that vein, I think, in a little bit. That is, anybody could have the same Logic sampler, same plugins and everything. So there's no way to be individual, but you can with your modular system. You can have your own little case with your own module setup. You'll be totally individual. And if you mimic that in software, if you do it on your iPad, on everything, instantly, there are hundreds, maybe thousands who have exactly the same sort of software setup that I have. Okay. Does that make me an individual? No, but I've got this unique only three made oscillators. Do you think that is part of the story?
Yes.
Yeah. You want to be an individual?
In short, I think that's a very strong part of the story. But I think also it's very clear that people are very... that they have a romantic notion about the sort of modular, and I think there's an issue with people think, well, if I use modular, it has to be just modular. The point is figuring out a way it works into the way that you are working, like you do, Robbie. You go, well, this will work for this, and you might use it as a seed for a track which will be finished elsewhere, or to enhance an existing track, or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it always boils down to me, like I always say, it's whatever tool is inspiring and great to get the job done at the time. To me there are no absolutes. There is no snobby divide as to what's acceptable and what isn't. It's whatever gets the job done and gets it done in a creative and good way. So that's my take on music technology as a whole, really. That's why I'm not scathing about anything, whether it be digital or virtual analog or whatever, because they all have their place in the ecosystem, as it were.
Absolutely. I suppose actually this feels like quite a good time to pause. We'll maybe come back and talk a little bit about Musicmesse as well, because that was another major event that happened. In the meantime, a little word from our sponsors. Okay.
Mastering tools in Ozone and Ozone Advanced. Now, the latest isotope innovations in Ozone 7 bring modern and vintage processing to the forefront of the music production experience. Updated for Ozone 7, Ozone's highly regarded maximizer features a brand new frequency-specific IRC4 algorithm that delivers transparent mixes with less pumping and distortion. Use it to smooth out an unwieldy mix, or tame the kick drum peaks without affecting the vocals. The Dynamic EQ, now in both the advanced and standard versions of Ozone, lives and breathes with your audio, giving you more effective control over your sound without coloring your entire mix. Harness the precision of an equalizer and the musical ballistics of a compressor in one integrated processor. New for Ozone 7, vintage-inspired processing puts nostalgic tone at your fingertips to bring the creative color and character of analog hardware to your digital recordings. Glue your mix together and bring a natural feel to harsh-sounding recordings with the Vintage Limiter. Vintage tape adds the dimension, warmth, and depth of tape saturation to your masters for a timeless sound that suits your creative vision. Brighten your mix, smooth out heavy low end, and add body with the Pultec modeled Vintage EQ. Tighten the lows, thicken the mid-range, and let the highs sparkle with the versatile Vintage compressor. With Ozone Advanced, you also get all 10 Ozone modules, including the new vintage processors, as separate component plugins. By loading the components on your instrument buses, you can add the power of Ozone before you get to mastering.
Right, so I want to say thank you very much to Isotope for sponsoring the show. Remember, we asked you, oh gosh, it seems like such a long time ago, to enter a competition. We asked you to tweet the hashtag on the Mixbus and the hashtag Ozone7 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And we have a winner for the last show. It was a chap called Marcus Hawkins Music, which is @MH Hawkins Music. That's the winner from last week. He tweeted, "Love what you guys do. Thank you very much. And congratulations. You have now won a copy of Ozone 7. If you get in touch, we will instruct the good people at Isotope to pass on your details, and you'll be getting a full copy on your inbox. Of course, if you want to check out Ozone 7, just go to isotope.com/ozone, and you'll be able to download a demo and check it all out. And as far as this week's go, we have another competition. The competition, we're asking you to tweet the hashtag Super Audio Mix and the hashtag Ozone7 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. This will enter you to the competition. You do need to be on Twitter for this, but if you just want to tweet the hashtag Super Audio Mix, that's one word, and the hashtag Ozone7, that's the number 7, to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. if you're listening to the audio version, and we will have a winner next time. Thank you very much, Isotope, for sponsoring the show. Now, of course, the next big thing is, of course, it's Musikmesse, right? Musikmesse was a pretty big change to things, and it was kind of, everybody was wondering a little bit of how it was going to be. And I think if I've got I might have I thought I had a walk somewhere. I'm just trying to find it. I don't think it's here, of course. This is the one thing that I can't find now. But I did a walk through the show, and it really is the one thing, because they've moved. Basically, Musikmesse used to be 2 shows at the same time, and they overlapped this year. They extended them. But what happened is the music and high-tech show was kind of nearer the entrance, and then the Pro Light and Sound was further away in the bigger halls. They just flipped that on its head. So everything was in a different place. Everything was kind of not as we'd expect it. But also, everything was much further apart. But there were quite a lot of people not there, exhibitor-wise. So it was very much a kind of transitional sort of event this year. So, Hans... Non-Eric, sorry, you were there.
Yes.
I know we were both quite sort of down, because last year felt very low on energy, and particularly after Superbooth, which felt so sort of exciting and non-corporate. This was sort of back into the kind of same old. I personally found it was less bad than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a real drag, and actually, I think there was a lot more there. You know, it was not synthy, admittedly, but there was still quite a number of people there, and there was still quite a lot to talk about. What did you make of it?
I would say, exhibitor-wise, it was slower than yet again. A couple of exhibitors that were there last year weren't there this year, so it was a little bit smaller, I think. Which is very hard to judge, because I think that's part of also why they changed the halls around, to make that a little bit less obvious who wasn't there.
Oh,
I do remember that a couple of years only ago we had 2 full halls, just electric guitars, which was all down to half, maybe. So I would say yes. That was less news. Less stuff to talk about, less videos to shoot, actually. It was great to see all the people from the industry, shake hands, talk. The food was better than last year. They at least managed to get some food trucks on the locations. So not just currywurst and pizza. That was good. But my one single largest complaint, actually, that I have is it was too loud.
Yes,
the noise level was
loud.
Unbelievable. Even we were doing our roundtable discussions right before the end of the show every day at the Comline booth, and we couldn't really hear what the person next to you was saying. So that was something that they need to improve on next year.
I would agree. I mean, I think from a kind of organizer and inside business point of view, yes, I think there were differences. There were a lot more. There was a lot more public days. They opened on Sunday, which meant there were quite a lot of people there on Sunday and at the weekend. But in terms of products, I mean, obviously it was a very different flavour because these shows are now quite close together. The pressure on companies to kind of come up with more stuff is quite demanding. I guess. I mean, I'm guessing you might have spotted a few bits and bobs and see what the. What did you see there that kind of excited you? And I'll see if I can find a video to play.
Okay, well, initially, I was quite disappointed by NAMM this year, and I was hoping that a lot of things were going to be held over to Musikmesse, and that was absolutely not the case. So many of my, things I'd like to have seen, just no sign at all. But, however, what a surprise to see Pioneer launching the Torize,
yes,
which
I think
is
that's what it's
essentially it's like what people have been really wanting Native Instruments Machine to be, which is essentially a standalone sampling box, or Akai's MPC. Now, we know that Akai have been talking about doing standalone MPCs for a while, and who would have thought that Pioneer has completely dominated DJ culture for the past however many years. But this looks like the first time I've seen Pioneer becoming, doing much more of a music production tool. I think they're probably hoping for that crossover from their DJ world. But the actual Torize itself, the big headline of that is the fact that it features genuine Dave Smith. Yeah. Analog filters.
Prophet 6 filters. And it's a standalone. And the other thing we should mention, this was something that I found. I mean, for those of you who don't know what the Torize is, it's basically an MPC-like sample workstation, 16 pads, much like a Machina or an MPC backlit. It's also got I think a 5 or a 7-inch touchscreen, much like the MPC Touch. It's also got a row of buttons, which are the step sequences, much like the TR8. So it seems to have taken, and it's also doing what everybody's been going. Can we have a standalone, please? Can we have a standalone, please? And it was, yes, you can, and here it is. I mean, it's not finished yet. The other thing that was very funny about that is it was literally back to back with the Akai booth. So there was Pioneer, there was Akai, and but I think it does. I think the reason that it's gone that way is because there seems to be a move. I was talking to a few DJs and they're saying DJing with a laptop is now becoming kind of almost passé, and the notion of forcing more live music production within your set is becoming something that people are after, or certainly something people are aspiring to, perhaps. So they're riding. I don't know whether this is getting bigger or whether they're expecting it to do so, but it's quite an interesting concept that they've actually done it. And I'm not really an MPC type user. I don't know what you thought about that, Non-Eric, whether or not there's something there that makes it good.
It was the first video we released from the Messe, because that was the most interesting unit inside at the show. I thought, as you mentioned, it's you're looking at it. Oh, looks like machine pads. Looks like TR8. Oh, looks like MPC Touch. Oh, analog filters. Great. So it's basically everything.
The best of
we want in one box, and it's
8 outputs as well.
8 outputs, 8 individual outputs. So this could be actually the follow-up to my SP1200. Could it? Maybe.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
And I think I talked to the developer, the guy who was basically there on the. He was a single guy product, he was behind the whole sort of product management, and in terms of the thing that they don't have, and we don't know what Pioneer have in the bag, is a comprehensive and workable operating system that is designed for live sampling and all of those things. I mean, that's something that's different to what they've been doing, and that's going to be the big challenge, I think, because all the other boxes are ticked, and so I think I spoke to some people and they're saying, does it seem expensive? And it's going to be about $1,600. Which I don't think is excessive, because it's got all of those things, which are all the things that people want. And it also plays back from USB. You can stick a USB drive straight into it. I think it's got 8 gigs of RAM on it, so you can get a lot of samples in there. I think the only question seems to be the step sequencer, because it seems to be 16 steps, although you can chain up to 4 patterns at the same time. So I'm not sure quite how that's necessarily working out. But
Germans would say, the German literal translation is, the devil lies in the detail.
Yeah.
So I think, we all know that software isn't that easy. And, when it comes down to is this going to be fun to work with the SP16? Well, it's got all the hardware features, but we don't know how the software is going to be. Will I be able to do nice loop recordings? Will I easily be able to chain patterns? How about upbeats? How is that handled? Yeah. So there's lots and lots of question marks.
But you have to remember that the Pioneer, though, have been really... at the forefront of those fancy DJ controllers now, haven't they? So they have got a real handle on that.
On UI, yes, I suppose so. UI,
on performance and on stability and reliability. Hence, them becoming probably they are the number one DJ brand now, aren't they? Pioneer,
possibly. Maybe you're right.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, Robbie, would you? I mean, because you use Ableton Live for triggering loops and arrangement. Would you ever consider moving to a dedicated hardware for that kind of thing? Assuming, say, this would work, in triggering long clips and having that sort of thing. Would that make any sense to you, or does it? Are you not so worried about the the laptop side of things?
I think because the job of Ableton in our setup is so much more complicated than. It's processing live, it's processing vocals in a live situation, it's sending out stuff to the video, it's doing all sorts of other stuff. I don't know. This product, I don't think, is designed really. This product, to me, looks like the kind of product that a DJ is going to use alongside, DJing to kind of add elements into the mix. And people who like that kind of pattern-based way of working. I generally don't really come from that background. The first sequencer I had was a D20, so I never used step sequencers apart from when I got it back into Modular. It was a Roland D20 with my first sequencer. Then I was straight onto an Atari with Pro 24. So I don't know. It doesn't really fit into my ecosystem, but I can see, like Gaz has said, with their pedigree of building stuff that's meant to last, that's reliable, and with that feature set, that people are going to use that very much as an add-on performance tool to an existing setup. It looks a serious piece of kit. It doesn't look, sometimes you see there's been a few bits and bobs from other DJ companies that kind of dip their toe in this sort of music production world, and they always just seem a little bit kind of Mickey Mouse. But this definitely does seem like a serious contender.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, but again, it comes down to the details. It should be pointed out that the filters on it are global, not per part. So, it's a global filter, but it is an analog filter. So that, if that makes any difference to what people think. But I mean, if it had an analog filter on every part, then that would be a completely different scale of expense, I would imagine. Gaz?
Can we talk about the DAS Alex?
Yes.
Because that... I'm still
let me just drop a little video in there so people have got a context for it.
Great, do that.
Thanks to our sponsors for the Messe coverage. Here we are.
What is this new concept? It looks really interesting.
Well, I'd like to introduce you to the Alex synthesizer. It's a truly scalable synthesizer and sequencing platform. It's based around the concept of hardware modules. You start off with the main module, which is your starter, which includes 4 tracks of instruments, which include a mix and effect section, a looper, not implemented yet, and a sequencer, a step sequencer right now. You have 4 of these per module. If that's not enough for you, you can add another, and another, and another. When you start off with the main module, this is where you access all your common parameters, all your navigation. Your central navigation is here, where you can load your patches, access the various parts of your tracks. These are your performance controls like scene, auto, and morph, and your transport, shift key as well. We didn't want to put shift keys on every single unit. Now, power is provided by there's a single power supply which drives all 4 units. As you scale up,
I should point out the LEDs don't flicker like that in real life. That was just a bit of interference with the shutter speed on our camera, so I don't want to represent. It's an interesting idea. I must admit there wasn't an awful lot to hear yet. It was more a question of the hardware. But the idea being it's modular DSP. If you start off with one box, then you can add more modules, which give you more screen, more tracks, more DSP, more outputs, and also CV/IO if you want to control that whole world. So I think the idea with this is for it to be at the centre of some form of production or control setup. No idea on pricing yet. It was really, the guy's been working on it for a couple of years, and this is the first time he's brought it out into the open. So it was very much a kind of, what do you think sort of idea. So, yeah, I mean, sorry, Gaz, that was just so that people who are watching kind of know what that's on about. So what were your thoughts about it then?
The physicality of it was quite appealing, especially to have that sequence running right across there. And I was thinking the format of it. If you did have a big bank of modular, because you can drive. There's no CV on it though, is there? It's just MIDI out on there.
There would, yes. It's possible to CV out from the expander outputs apparently.
That's right, yeah. So, I was thinking, it is the size of it, I think. I'm seeing that sequence move across. We saw a few other big sequences, didn't we, as well? We saw that really...
the poly end,
yeah, which again had a nice, large physicality to it. And last year we saw the Coma and I think some other things. So the idea of this larger scale sequencing environment, I think, is quite appealing and interesting to see how that side of things develop, really, I think. But it does look quite attractive, doesn't it? And it looks like it could be a lot of fun. What was he saying as well? Like the parameters, if you use certain modes, you can put the parameters across all 4 modules, but for the one sound you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds. I mean, the only thing I would say, it looks like it's going to be incredibly complicated. I think that's the point. Did you see this one, Nono? I mean, did you go and check that out? I'm sorry, you were sneezing. I muted you. I beg your pardon.
Oh, okay. Back on?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. No, I didn't see that in detail, and I think it's between the. I don't know. Once we start with big displays and shift keys, and knobs for one sound over many units, this sounds very much like a controller. It's getting so. I'm not sure. I thought it was right between being a real sort of hardware thing and being more or less a reduced computer. It didn't excite me. I'm sorry.
I think that's
I guess it really boils down to what it's capable of sound-wise as well. Because like you say, to be fair to the guy, there wasn't much you could hear. And if you're going to invest in something like that and invest your time into learning a new ecosystem like that, you want it to sound good and, have something to offer that you can't get elsewhere. So, it's a bit early to make a judgment, I think. Well, for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, the other thing that was rocking, I thought, at the show was the Rolly stand. They had, I don't know if you saw any of the stuff from Marco Parisi. He was playing some absolutely amazing kind of... And this goes against all that I feel is sort of sacred in many ways. He was playing kind of guitar and bass stuff, but it was so expressive. He did a version of Little Wing, which was going around on Facebook, which is almost... you look at it and you just think, how is that even possible? It's just such an expressive thing. And there's some fantastic updates to the Equator synthesizer as well. And that's something that's turning into a synthesizer that is really starting to make me think, I would like to have that. It feels, it's linked to the hardware. I mean, but only notionally. There's no reason why you couldn't control it for something else, apart from the fact they don't sell it separately. And that's something that, that they really are starting to use that as a USP. I don't know if what you think about it. Did you check that out, Gaz? I mean, did you see Marco's stuff? It was astonishing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think using the context of a guitar sound is a good way for people to be able to relate to what's going on. You know, if he was using otherworldly sounds and having all that expressivity, you don't maybe have as kind of clear way of assessing it compared to other things, as opposed to seeing it as any way a replacement for the guitar or anything like that. I think they've really impressed me in the last few years. Rowley have, in the fact that when we first saw the Seaboard, it was
all
almost
laughed,
like,
didn't we? Yeah,
a little bit. It was almost like, is that really going to sort of have any legs about it? But now, I mean, like I go into like the big music shop in Bristol, and there's a big Rowley stand in there. Really. They're really pushing these things. So I'm starting to see them out in the wild a bit as well. So I think it is turning into a bona fide hit. And if they keep developing it the way they're doing, I mean, the thing I'm really hoping that they do is release the fully fledged Equator as an iOS version. I mean, it makes absolute sense, especially with the Rise having Bluetooth, Bluetooth connectivity. The iPad and the Rowley together makes such an incredibly streamlined and futuristic combo. So now you can get that noise for the iOS, which is essentially a cut down version of it. But the fully fledged Equator on iPad, please. Yeah. Certainly iPad Pro, I can imagine it be.
Yeah, definitely.
Got a lot of
Non-Eric, I'm guessing, have you played one of these things? Because that was one thing I did at the show. I thought, I'll sit down and see if I can, and it just made no sense. You can't play it like that, because if you slide, you get kind of stuck. You have to play it like this, so you can move your feet. There's a definite change in technique. In fact, there's one coming for review in the next couple of days, so I'm looking forward to seeing just how much modification you have to make. But They seem to have gone a long way with this thing. Even I was one of the first people to sort of say, I'm not sure about this. It seems like another gimmicky thing, but I know Robbie's been using one. Have you had a chance to see one in the flesh? I mean, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting product. There's lots of investment money floating around, I think, because they can do a lot of marketing, and they trying to and their goal is, and if they want to succeed, that's what they have to succeed at, is replace the traditional keyboard with a Rowley in a way, because I think it's something like this. It takes a certain amount of people to actually use it to be a breakthrough, because it's a change in, as you said, it's a different technique. It's not a regular keyboard by any means. It looks like it, and it can be played in a way, but if you're a traditional player, you'll be confused, and for me, it would be very hard to work with it, because it's got all these extra features in terms of functionality and how to play that I would have to just try it out. Maybe it's the thing that I've been looking for.
Yeah, maybe. It is very expressive. I don't want to turn it too much into the Rowley show, so I'm going to ask you two guys, was there anything Gaz, did you see anything else at Musicmesse that kind of really made you think, that's interesting? Because, I mean, obviously we did have to search around a bit for more stories, because a lot of it was, not necessarily new, but stuff perhaps we hadn't seen before.
I think it was only an announcement. Sound Radix Adaptive Verb sounds really interesting. That's
Synaptic.
Oh, sorry, it's not sound. It's Synaptic.
Yeah.
My mistake.
That and the wormhole.
I'll tell you what. I did try and get a demo, but the guy said, "Look, I can't do one here. It's too noisy. I can't hear what I'm doing. We'll do one after the show sometime." Yeah. So, for those folks saying, "Why didn't I get a video?" I did try several times, and he just said, "Look, it's too important for." Sorry.
Same here, Nick. That's exactly what he told us.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen one online. It does sound very interesting. I mean, those are the things that piqued my interest, and also the soft tube T-verb, the Tony Visconti, reverb.
Eventide, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Eventide. Yeah, Eventide. Yeah, I've been demoing that. It's great. So I'm enjoying that.
I have one remark on that one, actually. I mean, it's great. We've got the brand, Tony Visconti, Heroes, David Bowie, the Meistersaal, la, 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 la. But the technique that Tony developed and that is mimicked in the plugin was actually done because of lack of tracks.
Yeah, of course.
Lack of tracks? Do we have a lack of tracks?
Anymore?
No, Eric. It's very interesting to use because the way it makes you think about a reverb in its place in a track is very different to just you have to start automating reverbs on and off. It's quite interesting to see how a reverb can drive a vocal can drive a reverb, and then in varying degrees. So I think it's a nice plugin to have alongside traditional reverbs, even in this modern age.
All right.
Very well said.
Convinced.
Okay. Anything else? Any other?
I thought that the Antelope Zentor audio interface just looked like maybe the most appealing, very small form factor audio interface, or certainly one of the most appealing ones I've seen so far. Actually, really interesting. It's got decent ADAT expandability, so you could sort of have it connect to a bigger system. But really, really nice interface. I think that is. Someone I know is using. I can't remember what it's called. The other Antelope interface that's made a splash in the last year or so with the red
Goliath.
No, not the Goliath.
Red ends and a handle.
That's the one. Yeah. And did sound really, really nice. So. Do you know the thing I'm talking about, the Zentor?
I didn't, but I did. Well, you were talking about portable interfaces. Did you see this one? This was also very interesting. The Zooms, the Zoom U44 and U24, and they're like $200 each, and they've got ADAT ports on them as well. They're like little mini mixers, stroke sound cards, which looked kind of cool.
It's the classic Zoom thing, isn't it? It's sort of like. Let's make a product that's totally out there in terms of what everybody else is doing, but quite often their products are really useful because of that.
Well, it looks to me that they've completely embraced the video market with that product, doesn't it? It looks marketed as a video product. It doesn't look like an audio interface as much as a video do you know what I mean? I think the styling of it is more kind of camera-y. I don't know. The Zentor that I'm talking about has got very slick, very, it's a million miles away from that in terms of the aesthetic.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, the Zentor, it's got a big OLED on it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a big OLED on it. Speaking of OLEDs, really, really quickly, just really disappointed that Teenage Engineering did not actually have the OP1 update on show. They were saying something along the lines of that if you turned up there and had an OP1, you could bring it to them and you could download the beta, but you weren't allowed to go public with it. So it's another 8 weeks of OP1.
We did try and get a video for that, and they said no, I'm sorry, we're not doing any videos. But they did say maybe we could come over and show you around it. So we might be getting an in studio kind of thing here, which would be pretty.
Product, isn't it? There's other Teenage Engineering product that they teased at NAMM. It looks bizarre with the video engine in it as well.
OPZ,
which they're talking about as well. Yeah, which anything to do with them always gets me interested because I love obviously. The OP1 is a love affair for me. So
yeah, but the OP1's new OS though is going to bring an arpeggiator, which whoop-de-doo. So, but you just know it's going to be an arpeggiator Teenage Engineering style. So I think that's going to be a bit special.
Yeah,
we got another 8 weeks to go.
Anyone see the? Let me see. I've got this here. The wacky crazy instrument, which is the Zentor.
Instruments are very interesting thing.
Sorry, which is not the Zentor, the audio.
Tell me about it. Tell me.
So, this is called the Silphio. This is a new wireless MIDI wind controller.
Wireless MIDI wind controller, again.
You can just play it just like a recorder.
Which is happening in the background. If I go over here.
Will be available.
The thing that was interesting about this demo wireless, which is pretty cool, but that guy playing the drums in the background was doing it via a trackpad. I have to say, incessantly for 8 hours a day, which was a little bit. But it was a great bit of finger drumming, whatever that might be. the thing about wind instruments is they're very effective for playing monophonic analogues if you can map the control voltage. When we did something with the Moog Ensemble with Will Gregory, he was because he's a very accomplished saxophonist, and he was playing wind control of the Mini Moog, and it sounded absolutely amazing. So that's the sort of thing that might slip under the radar. You think, do I need I don't know. I can't imagine you playing one of those. Non-Eric, perhaps it's another one of those instruments for the futuristic Star Wars bar band. I think perhaps, yeah.
Probably, but I have to remember saxophonist. What's it called?
Saxophonist.
Saxophonist. I love the word saxophonist. I'd love to be a saxophonist. Sounds a little bit naughty, actually, for a German.
Does when you say it.
Saxophonist. Oh, John Eric is a saxophonist. Ooh. All right. No. I always find it. I mean, finger drumming on the laptop. Oh man, I'm so time conscious. Ooh. I couldn't stand listening to that for 8 hours.
He was very good, though. Actually, I have to say.
Okay,
he
all right.
Was very good.
No opinion on that one. Sorry. I'll pass that on to Robbie.
I got a weird thing. I was chatting the other day to the landlord of the big property that we're here. The client I'm working for is renting, and it turns out he's the inventor of the Eigenharp. It's his company.
Wow.
So he was telling me all about his instrument. I was going, this sounds really familiar. And then I was like, so weird. So the landlord here is the owner of Eigenharp.
Well, I forget his name, actually, because he had a background.
John something or other.
He had a background in something else, didn't he? And I remember what I can't remember the details now, but
yes. They make them down this way, hand make them. Yeah,
they're still going because I wasn't sure because it was one of those instruments that just didn't quite. It was in many ways it was the Roley of its time, but it didn't quite make it over the hill, over the whatever the bump was, because it just looked so bloody weird and was actually really difficult to play. Is one thing that I found actually.
Well, it was a little bit of one of those tumbleweed moments when he came in the studio and saw my Roley and told me about what he did.
I can imagine that might have been.
But all that was going through his mind was this Roley is the company that we should be.
Well, anyway. I do recall Eigen Labs also was one of those companies that seemed to have a massive number of people working for it, even with a small number of products. I remember it was a very similar trajectory in many ways. Obviously, it had quite a lot of investment from somewhere, whether it was him or other investments. So
from him.
Right.
I think he much owns the whole area. But no, it's interesting. He said they're still making them. They're just making the higher end ones, and they sell a few a month. And there are people like any of these controllers who have a passion for them. So
the space bassoon, I think, is what I might have called it. Well, it feels like we're kind of. I mean, there were quite a number of other products at. Did anyone see the Yamaha Transwave acoustic? Let me refresh your memories.
Yamaha TA is standing for Trans Acoustic, and it's a complete.
I had to record this with the mics because I wanted to get the sound of the guitar, so it's a little bit room. Well, I say a little bit, a massively amount of room.
3 knobs, volume control.
So this is it on its own.
And a switch on the console.
Oh no! Hold on.
And then see what happens. This is the dry signal.
Just mic.
Switch on the concert hall. Reverb.
From an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, it's crazy. I explain it. Inside, we have an.
Well, anyway, so this guitar somehow manages to generate acoustic reverb and chorus through the body of the guitar. There was no line out of that. It was just coming out of the body of the guitar. It's quite subtle, but it was still doing it. I mean, and that's the sort of thing that you kind of think, you look at it and you go, what? Did you see that, Gaz? It was pretty mental.
Yeah. Well, it brought to mind the thing I used to have years ago, which was a thing that clipped on the back of an acoustic guitar, went under the strings. It had real springs on it, and it would generate like a spring reverb acoustically as you played. I'm trying to remember what that was called now, years and years ago. Just kind of clipped on the back. So, obviously trying to get to the same thing. I mean, this I thought was cool. When he said that the battery life was like 8 hours, I was like, yeah, just, I wonder how many of these batteries won't be changed on them. 8 hours is a bit rubbish, I think.
Is it?
But,
I guess it has to do some mechanical. It was a very popular item, actually, the transacoustic. The other thing, because I was suggesting to him that perhaps what would make it more interesting is to go really extreme. So, put distortion in there, because basically what it does takes the input sound, feeds it from a transducer or I'm not sure what it was, and then goes into a DSP, and then it feeds back into the body. I thought, make it really extreme, put like a infinite sustain reverbs in there, put in huge delays, put in massive amounts of distortion, so the whole thing becomes almost uncontrollable if you play it. So it'd be like a 335 through a really loud amp in terms of the mechanical feedback, and then it would be a completely different thing. And I don't know whether they've got any plans for that or not. I know. Non-Eric, did you see that the Yamaha Transacoustic with the built-in DSP that actually fed the reverb and the chorus back through the body of the guitar with no line out, so you heard it? It was a very unusual concept. I was just saying it would be more fun if it was really extreme.
Missed it.
Oh,
and I have no video from you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay, I'm sorry about that. You're on live at the moment, so there you go.
Can I just say one thing? It was I had one of those moments this week, which was like, I made the most boring purchase, but it was the most revolutionary purchase I've made in ages. How sometimes you get these things that totally change the way you work. And I've been fighting for a long time using SSDs for my samples and audio and everything, because there haven't been SSDs to the capacity I was prepared to invest in. But I finally invested in these 2 terabyte SSDs by Samsung. A shocking cost, but it's absolutely revolutionised my workflow, because I just cannot believe how I survived for so long using mechanical discs for loading in big vast sample libraries and recording direct to disc. It's just like it sort of like it made the studio like a super studio overnight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, just how Logic responds, everything is just as like night and day. So I've been very smart.
Internal ones, yes.
Yeah, I've got a Thunderbolt chassis, and they're 2.5-inch discs, and they're the Samsung 850 Pros, which are like, they've got a 10-year guarantee as well. So they've got like 4 times the amount of read writes compared to anything else. But the fact that they were 2 terabytes, I just refused to start separating my sample libraries over multiple hard because it's so messy.
Oh, we lost him. Gaz, jump in.
Well, here a little thing. SSD drive. This is a 480 gig one. That was about 80 quid off Amazon. So we finally started to see SSD drives coming down in price. But then I discovered you could get this thing, which is just a USB 3 interface for SSD. So now your SSD drive can live externally, like it just, I've just got a little padded bag.
All right.
Put the SSD drive into.
What's the advantage though? Because USB 3 is not all that much faster than.
Are you kidding? It's mega fast. I'm getting transfer rates with this around 350 meg a second. So, it's for an external drive, and that through this little cable.
Sorry, we lost you there, for a moment.
No, it was one of those things. It was a boring purchase, but it was kind of like every day I turn the system on, I just sit here smugly going, "Oh, this is so good, such a worthwhile investment."
Well, that reminds me a little bit. We saw there was a Cymatica who made these standalone recorders and playback units, and they've got a kind of black box like thing, which is a 16-track or is it 24 channel playback and record unit, but it's also now audio network enabled. They use AES 67 standard, and so they will sync, so you can sync 3 of them together so that the songs will be loaded. So if you're a big touring act and you need some playback or you need to record a whole bunch of stuff, and that looked kind of good. And they had these little tiny SSDs. They were running the demos. They had those thumb drives that are like this big that you just push in, and all the tracks were playing back off these tiny little thumb drives. But they also had these beautiful SSDs as well, which were presumably meant it could record. Somatica also make. This is the interesting thing. The add-on card for the X32 we've been expecting to get. They said that they were going to do a direct record, so you could just plug a USB drive into the back of it and it would just record the channels. They haven't done that yet, but Cymatic Audio have done that. So you can buy this card and you plug it in and it's just got a record button on the back and it just streams whatever you're routing to it out to separate channels from the X32 architecture, and that was very nice.
Nice.
We should actually say, wasn't there some big news? Motu announced Thunderbolt drivers for Windows systems.
Yeah,
that's got to be pretty big news, right, for Windows users? Not for you, obviously, Robbie, who barely knows what the Windows startup sounds like.
I literally, if somebody, my dad's one of these people with technology, he periodically rings me up and goes, I've got a problem with my computer, could you help me? And I have to go, Dad, I've told you this a million times. It's a PC. I've never even switched a PC on in my life. I don't know the first thing about it. You probably know more than I do. So I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that big news, though, a Thunderbolt? And also there's Universal Audio did the USB satellite as well, USB satellite for Windows too. Did you get any joy for you on the Motu stuff? That's kind of big news. I mean, assuming that motherboard manufacturers start to support Thunderbolt a bit more, maybe they will.
Maybe the USB 3.0 Universal Audio is the bigger news.
Maybe so. But only on PC. It doesn't work on Windows as well, which is a real shame.
No, it doesn't work on Mac, which is a real shame.
Sorry, on Mac, yeah.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work on iPad because of that. And I suggested to them, I said, okay, I do understand the full functionality, transporting the audio streams from the computer to the device, to the satellite and back, doing that on the standard USB, what's it called, devices, blah, 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 you know what I mean. Aggregated devices or whatever they call the standard operating system standard audio procedure that would probably not work because of the multitude of audio streams they have to exchange. But I said, well, at least you could give me on my Apollo Twin, just give me 2 channels audio via USB, and I can hook up my iPad and my Mac, and I don't have to switch to the Focusrite interface here whenever I do an iPad or iOS show.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. I mean, I think that's not a bad idea. Just in the YouTube chat room, Lloyden1 says, any news on Spectrasonics or Access Music? No. I spoke to Access. I was trying to get a statement out of them because they were at Superbooth, say, have you got any news? And he said, no, not at the moment. I haven't really got anything to say about that. And Spectrasonics, no word from them at Messe. I don't believe they were there at all. I didn't see them anywhere. Did you? They might have been in another hall somewhere, because that's the thing about the Messe, because everything was all over the place. They could have been in half a mile away in another hall on a booth that they got at the last minute. I mean, just don't know. Right, I suppose this might be a good time to call it a King Sunny, as they say. Because we've been going for a while and it's been fairly freeform, I understand that. So I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you also to our sponsors from Isotope. Just quickly should say, if you want to enter the competition, tweet the hashtag Super Audio Mix and the hashtag Ozone7 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. and you'll be entered in the competition to win a copy of Ozone7. So that's that part of the housekeeping done. I'll say, Non-Eric, thank you very much for joining us. What time will your interview with Dave Rossum be up tomorrow? Because it's going to be in English and it's going to be very interesting. I'm sure lots of people will want to see that.
That will be tomorrow at noon.
So that is musotalk.de for English language version of
German language.
But for the Dave Rossum thing. So do check that out. Thank you very much, Non-Eric. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard, as ever.
Yes.
And Mr. Gaswaldo Williamsons over there in Bristol. Hopefully we'll get to see you, because we haven't actually seen you in person since the Saturday of our gig. In fact, I'm going to play out, because I've got a little bit of I did a little bit of a clip show of that, so I'll put that in the live stream. People can see it. It will be cool. Improved. But yeah, but Gaz, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, great. Thanks ever so much.
And Robbie Bronneman over there, once again, thank you to your client for giving you the time out to join us, and for you giving up your free time to join us as well.
I hope I didn't butt in at all, because I had a weird latency the whole time.
No, so that was fine.
I wasn't sure whether I was talking across anyone. Anyway.
But thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And so I think what we'll do is we'll play out. This was a sort of edited highlights, very quickly edited highlights of the live stream from our show on the 26th. We'll probably do a slightly more fulsome version, but probably not everybody's set, because certainly 3 or 4 of us, or well, certainly me, had all sorts of technical issues, so it would require quite a lot of editing. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this, and that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I wonder if it'll play. That would be good.
Okay, hello everybody. We are now streaming live from Salt Cafe in Bristol for the very first ever Sonicstate Live. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Jervis.
The train is coming, baby, down the railroad track. Here, coming. I'm coming back. It's gonna win. It's gonna win, but I'm barely alive. Barely alive. Barely alive. Barely alive.
Noisy robot.